When people say, Elon, you're running too many companies, they're not entirely wrong. The dark truth is that, even if you can technically juggle Tesla, SpaceX, XXI and more, there's a real cost. For me, for the people around me, and for investors who bet on focus and get chaos instead. This is the video where that gets said out loud. From the outside, the story sounds heroic. One guy at the center of electric cars, rockets, social media, and AI. From the inside, it's a knife edge between impact and overload. Over the last couple of years, the backlash has gone from Twitter comments to full-blown legal and investor pressure. In 2024, Tesla shareholders filed lawsuits accusing me of diverting talent and resources away from Tesla to build my AI company, Zappy. They pointed out that engineers left Tesla for XAI, that XI had access to Tesla's AI-related data, and that I'd ordered thousands of NVIDIA AI chips, originally destined for Tesla, to be rerouted to X. And they called that a breach of duty to Tesla. By early 2026, Xi was telling its own investors it would build AI for Tesla's Optimus robots, while some Tesla shareholders were literally asking courts to force me to give Xi back to Tesla or disgorge my stake. That's not blog drama. That's investors saying, if you're going to call Tesla an AI and robotics company, you can't keep building the crown jewels in your side company and then decide where the value lands later. At the same time, a bloc of major Tesla investors, including big institutional holders, sent a letter to the board in 2025 demanding that I commit to at least 40 hours per week at Tesla as a condition of any new compensation package. They wanted a clear succession plan, limits on outside board roles, and more independent oversight, arguing that Tesla was in crisis and that my divided attention was part of the problem. When shareholders are asking your board to force you to show up for a minimum number of hours, you've definitely crossed some line in their minds. So yes, there is backlash, and if you zoom out, it makes sense. The core problem with running too many companies is attention. People romanticize the idea. Multiple companies, multiple industries, hyperproductivity, 10 times life. What they don't see is the mental cost of extreme context switching. There's plenty of research now on decision fatigue and context switching in executives. The more times your brain is forced to jump between unrelated high-stakes topics in a day, the more your decision quality collapses over time. Even if you're still technically working, you start relying on shortcuts, emotions, or inertia instead of fresh thinking. You delay the hard calls because you're mentally depleted. You default to just keep going on projects that should be killed because you don't have energy left to reevaluate them. It's the same for burnout. Global studies show CEO burnout sharply rising. Long hours, constant crisis mode, non-stop decision-making, blurred boundaries. Now stack that for someone running not one company, but several that are all in highly regulated, capital-intensive, media-obsessed industries, rockets, cars, AI, social media. The internet likes to treat that as superhuman behavior. In reality, it's more like speed running a burnout simulator with real money and real people attached. Even with time boxing, ruthless calendars, and very strong teams, focus fragments. When you are legally responsible for that many spinning plates, you think you're keeping up, and mechanically you are, but the hidden costs start to show up in slower or inconsistent communication. Half-finished initiatives that lose momentum when your attention moves. Strategic zigzags that make perfect sense inside your head, but look like chaos from the outside. Teams that feel they are competing with other companies you own for your time and resources. Tesla versus Ake is the clearest example of that feeling. Investors weren't just angry about specific chips or engineers. They were angry about the idea that Tesla's upside, the AI and robotics story that underpins its valuation, might be leaking into a separate, privately controlled entity where they don't share the gains. That's the structural cost of too many companies. Conflict of focus becomes conflict of interest. There's also a human cost. The internet meme is, Elon doesn't sleep, he's a machine. The boring reality is that chronic sleep restriction, high stress, and constant decision-making are terrible for health, for anyone. When you normalize 80-100-hour weeks for years, your nervous system adapts by becoming permanently braced for impact. You start waking up already in fight-or-flight. you stop properly recovering. On the outside, it still looks like performance. On the inside, you're accumulating invisible debt, shorter patience, sharper reactions to minor problems, less joy from big wins, because your brain is already on the next fire. Increasing temptation to escape into distractions, scrolling, drama, arguments, because it feels easier than tackling the next giant decision. In other words, even if you appear to function, your margin shrinks. And when your margin shrinks, everything becomes more fragile, including the companies and investors depending on you. So yes, even a superhuman CEO pays a price when focus fragments. The only difference is that the blast radius is bigger. What's the lesson for you? It is not you should try to run 5 companies because Elon does. If anything, it's the opposite. You should not copy the number of projects. You should copy the intensity of focus per project. When people look at my life, they see breadth. When I look at what actually works, it's depth that moves the needle, long, focused stretches on rocket engineering with SpaceX, deep dives into Tesla AI and Optimus, obsessive attention to a small number of core product decisions. The problem is not working intensely on big things. The problem is trying to do that level of intensity on too many big things at once. For a normal person, the right model is 1 or 2 big bets. Very deep focus. Hard boundaries around your time, energy, and health. Instead of trying to copy multi-CEO, your goal should be to identify one main vehicle for your ambition at a time. One career path you're going to push hard for 15 years. One business you're going to build rather than 5 half-baked ones. One truly important skill you'll take from okay to world class before you branch out. You can experiment on the edges, but your core should not look like a cluttered app folder. When your attention is fragmented across too many big things, you get half-built projects, half-developed skills, burnout, without leverage. When your attention is concentrated on 1 or 2 big, aligned bets, you get compounding, you get a reputation, you get systems and teams that multiply your effort instead of you manually pushing everything, everywhere, all at once. So how do you build a high-impact life without burning yourself and everyone else out? A few principles that I would actually recommend. Pick one main arena. Decide whether your primary game for the next 15 years is building a company, climbing in a specific industry, becoming a top expert in a field. Don't try to do all 3 as separate full-time games at once. Limit CEO of everything fantasies. You don't need multiple companies to feel important. You need one vehicle with enough upside and the discipline to stay with it long enough for compounding to kick in. Design your calendar like an engineer, not a victim. That means block serious time for deep work on your main bet. Group similar tasks to reduce context switching. Protect recovery, like you protect key meetings. Decision quality and creativity don't survive endless context jumps. Recognize your cognitive budget. Even with extreme discipline, CIOs and CEOs hit decision fatigue. Research shows judgment deteriorates when you're forced into constant rapid-fire choices. Use that knowledge. Schedule your hardest work when you have the most energy. Automate or delegate trivial decisions. Create hard boundaries against burnout. Not because you're weak, but because burnout turns smart people into worse decision makers. That might mean cut one project completely instead of trying to manage it on the side. Say no to opportunities that don't meaningfully accelerate your main bet. Treat sleep and health as infrastructure, not optional upgrades. The paradox of ambition is that you can destroy your impact by trying to do too much of it at once. You can become less effective precisely because you refuse to look limited. If you learn anything from the dark side of my multi-CEO life, let it be this. You are not supposed to copy my loadout. You are supposed to copy my willingness to go all in on the few things that truly matter. And be honest about the cost when you try to go all in on everything. If you pick 1 or 2 big bets, design your life around deep focus, and respect your own limits more than the internet's expectations, you'll likely end up with something most people never get: real progress, without having to set yourself on fire to light it.